Man, oh man, what an incredible day. I moved so many electrons. Well, time for some TV. What channel do you want to watch? Well, the protein channel is one I've had my eye on for a while. I'm Filament, and this is breaking news, live from the nucleus to your telomere. We've just received word that transport trucks from all across the cell are going to the nucleus to protest a new government mandate that will no longer allow unvaccinated protons to cross the inner mitochondrial membrane, causing large supply chain disruptions. We now go live to downtown Nucleolus for a message from the organizers.
If you're involved in transporting goods, you better get down here ASAP.
Man, this sounds like a big deal. Our transport of electrons is an essential service, and nobody should tell us what to do. Let's get down there and protest. Dude, I'm having a breakdown over here. I'm trying to get rid of all these annoying electrons, but my taxis are gone. Hey, we're trying our best over here. At least we're energetic, unlike the rest of you lazy slobs. That's weird, there's a note over there. It says gone protesting. This is bloody terrible. Without NAD and FAD, the electron transport chain can't operate, and ADP will never reunite with the phosphate. I miss you, my love. Ugh, and this is the last time I use Uber electrons. I ordered them like 2 minutes ago, and I need them for my date with hydrogen. Will everyone calm down? If we take microtubule 401, that will take us right to the nucleus. There we can find NAD and FAD and convince them to come back. Or else the electron transport chain will collapse and we'll have to rely on stupid glycolysis for energy. Hey, I'm trying my best over here. At least I'm a strong and independent molecule that doesn't need to rely on oxygen. Just shut up about that, okay? I know I'm an acceptor, but sometimes it would feel good to be accepted. I'm with acetyl-CoA. It's a dangerous world out there in the cytoplasm, so we all need to go together. And pyruvate, you stay here and ferment like you've never fermented before. This is going to be the journey of the centriole.
Well, here we are. The sign says the nucleus is only 50 micrometers east. Let's save the planet and take public transit. I think a vesicle should be coming soon. All aboard! Wow, you can just feel the energy in this place. 1, 2, 3, 4, NAD won't take no more. Say no to making vaccinations mandatory for hydrogen ions. NAD pride! Look, there they are. Hey, NAD, what are you doing here? We're trying to protest. We need you back. Don't you realize how important you are? No, not really. I've always just kind of moved electrons around because that's the family business. My, oh my. Let me tell you a little story about the electron transport chain.
When you guys drop off your electrons to the protein complexes along the inner mitochondrial membrane, they pass them between each other. They all like the electrons, but some of them are even more electronegative than others. So electrons get passed along in sequence from one protein to the next. There's a total of 4 protein complexes, but only protein complexes 1, 3, and 4 actually pump hydrogen ions across the membrane. Each of them pumps 2 hydrogens from the matrix into the intermembrane space using the energy from the electrons brought by one of you guys, meaning electrons dropped off at protein complex 1 would result in 6 protons being pumped across. The electrons from an NAD molecule are dropped off at protein complex 1. A coenzyme called ubiquinone, also known by the more boring name of coenzyme Q10, moves the electrons over to protein complex 3, which in turn passes them on to protein complex 4 and then out to oxygen.
Wait a second, you're dropping off electrons at protein complex 1? I have to go all the way to number 2. That's way too far. I was getting to that if you would let me finish.
Yes, that is correct. FAD is oxidized at protein complex 2, which sauces those electrons over to ubiquinone so they can join their fellow electrons in protein complex 3. This means that the electrons from FAD can only pump 4 hydrogen ions over the membrane, since they only pass through 2 of the proton-pumping proteins. As the electrons move, this supplies the energy the proteins need to pump hydrogen ions across the membrane into the intermembrane space. The concentration of proteins in this area gets much higher than inside the matrix, creating a concentration gradient that makes the protons desperate to get back to the other side of the membrane. There's only one place they can pass through, and this is called ATP synthase. Now this is a super special enzyme because it catalyzes the synthesis of ADP and a phosphate. The activation energy is supplied by the movement of hydrogen ions down their concentration gradient, which turns the stock of ATP synthase, generating energy. This works almost like a turbine, only it's 1.65 times 10 to the 26 times smaller than the average wind turbine. Yes, I actually did the math on that. Anyway, the energy produced by two hydrogen ions moving through is sufficient to form an ATP molecule, which has a lot of energy stored in its bonds and is used as the primary energy source in organisms. We need you guys because the electrons that every NAD brings along can pump 6 hydrogen ions across the inner mitochondrial membrane, meaning that you can produce 3 ATP molecules.
I get that, but we already get tons of energy from glycolysis, pyruvate oxidation, and the Krebs cycle. Why complicate the process even more?
Eukaryotes require a ton of energy. Glycolysis and the Krebs cycle each make 2 ATP molecules per glucose, which is horribly inefficient. With 4 ATP molecules and 31 kilojoules of energy per ATP, and 2,870 kilojoules in a glucose, that would only be 4.3% efficient. However, the theoretical ATP yield in the electron transport chain is a whopping 32 ATPs. This means that we can get a theoretical yield of 36 ATPs, although in reality this number is closer to 30. There are some reasons for this, including potential leakage of hydrogen ions through the inner mitochondrial membrane back into the matrix without passing through ATP synthase, since the concentration gradient pushes them to do so. Also, some of these hydrogen ions are used by the cell for other activities besides powering ATP synthase. Even still, this makes cellular respiration about 32% efficient, which is enough to supply the large amounts of energy needed by eukaryotes.
Well, you make a compelling argument, but sometimes my coworkers in the ETC are like myelin, because they just get on my nerves. Like the electrons, for example. Whenever they don't feel accepted, they just make it a toxic work environment.
Free-floating electrons in a cell would be catastrophic and could cause a pretty quick and unfortunate death. That's why we need oxygen, which is super electronegative so it can oxidize the final protein complex by accepting the electrons. The oxygen is reduced, combining with 2 protons from the matrix to make a water molecule as a harmless byproduct of cellular respiration. If there was no oxygen, the majority of cellular respiration would come to a halt, and we would need to rely on fermentation for energy.
Wow, you guys really appreciate us. We're pretty important. Speak for yourself. When I'm mating glycolysis, the mitochondria won't even let me in. I have to turn into FAD, even though I'm way better at my job. I make 3 ATPs, this idiot only makes 2. Yeah, that's a scientific fact. I can't help you out there if I want to keep this video scientifically accurate. What do you say, guys? Will you come back to the ETC and end the movie now that everything in the rubric has been hit? Fine, but under one condition. And what's that? We get to perform our rock song. And off to the protein complex, number 1, oxidized feed. There's no need to be perplexed about the ETC. Gonna make some ATP at the enzyme active site. Need oxygen to accept important concepts. To make ATP, it's energy. ATP for you and me. NAD brings electron loads. ATP in eukaryotes. Wow, I love my job now that I know how important it is. Let's never leave again. I agree.